The night my best friend's sister looked me in the eye and said, "Don't let me stay up alone tonight." I realized she did not see me as useless anymore, or maybe she did and wanted me there anyway. I am still not sure which one scares me more. My name is Matt. I am 25 and I scrape by doing odd jobs in a rich suburb just outside Seattle. It is the kind of place where people drive shiny SUVs, lawns are cut in perfect lines, and nobody ever wonders how the trash cans drag themselves back from the curb. People either own things here or fix them. I am on the fixing side. I patch leaky pipes, mow overgrown yards, clean gutters, paint fences, anything that pays in cash or a quick transfer. I go home to a small one-bedroom apartment that smells like damp carpet and old takeout. My truck is older than me in car years and rattles every time it changes gears, but it still moves, so I do not complain. My life is not pretty, but it is simple. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. It was not always like that. In high school, I had plans. I wanted to go to college, maybe study engineering, build things that mattered. I even made it 1 year in. Then the money ran out, the stress piled up, and my pride would not let me ask for help. I dropped out and came back home. Word gets around fast in a town like this. "That Matt kid," people would say, just loud enough for me to hear. He had potential, threw it away. I stopped trying to explain myself. It was easier to shut my mouth, do the job, take the cash, and move on. 3 years ago, I heard it straight to my face. Jason, my buddy from high school, had an older sister named Valerie. Back then, she was around 39, a teacher at the local school. The kind of teacher who could quiet a whole room without raising her voice. Smart, sharp, always put together. When she looked at you, you felt like she saw every bad idea you had ever had. Jason and I used to hang out in his garage, play video games, sneak beers from his dad's fridge when nobody was home. One night we skipped some school event and were messing around in there when Valerie walked in. She did not yell. That almost made it worse. "You're dragging my brother down with you," she said to me, her eyes cold and clear. "You are useless, Matt. You will never amount to anything." The words hit like a punch and somehow stuck around even longer. After that, I avoided her. Jason left for college soon after, and we drifted apart. I figured I would never see Valerie again, which was fine with me. So when my phone buzzed on a rainy Thursday afternoon and her name lit up the screen, I almost dropped the wrench I was holding. I was under a sink at a client's house, trying to stop a slow leak. Valerie calling me made no sense. I let it ring out the first time, thinking it had to be a mistake. Then she called again. I wiped my hands on my jeans and answered. "Hello?" "Matt, it's Valerie," she said. Her voice was clipped, but not as hard as I remembered. "My water heater is acting up and the guy that first hired bailed. Can you come by? I will pay you." I froze under the sink. Valerie, asking me for help. The same woman who told me I was useless. Part of me wanted to hang up. Another part remembered I had rent due in a week. "Sure," I said. "I can be there in an hour." Her house was in the nicest part of town. Big 2-story place with ivy on the front and a wide porch with a swing. It looked like something out of a magazine. My truck looked even more out of place than usual when I parked at the curb. The sky was gray. A steady drizzle turned the sidewalk dark. I grabbed my toolbox, pulled my hood up, and walked to the door. My stomach was tight in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. I rang the bell and waited. When the door opened, I almost did not recognize her at first. Valerie stood there in a soft gray sweater and jeans, socks instead of heels, her brown hair tied back but a few pieces falling loose around her face. She did not look like the iron teacher in my memory. She looked tired around the eyes, but calmer somehow. Like she had fought a lot of battles and was too worn out to show off the armor. "Matt," she said, stepping aside. "The heater is in the basement. I do not need you to say anything. Just fix it and go." Quote. Her words were plain, but there was no sting in them. Just a wall. "Got it," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Inside, her house felt warm and lived in. Shelves along the hallway were lined with glass jars. Candles. Some were lit, casting soft glows and gentle scents into the air. Lavender, pine, vanilla. Old family photos sat on a mantel. Valerie with Jason when they were kids. Their parents. The dog jumping in a pile of leaves. Somewhere deeper in the house, soft jazz played from a speaker. It felt cozy and lonely at the same time. Like she had built herself a safe place and then forgotten how to invite anyone in. I went down to the basement, toolbox in hand. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a weak yellow light. The water heater stood in the corner, old and grumpy, hissing now and then. The rain beat against the tiny window above, making the room feel even more closed in. I set my tools down and got to work. Checked the thermostat, the pressure valve, the pilot light. The problem was not complicated. One of the elements was burned out. It just needed to be replaced. I took my time anyway. Part of it was pride. This was Valerie's house. I wanted the thing working perfectly. No excuses. Another part of it was nerves. As long as I was working, I did not have to talk to her. I heard her before I saw her. Her steps came down the stairs, slow and careful. She stopped halfway, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The light from upstairs fell over her shoulders. "How is it looking?" she asked. "Not too bad," I said, keeping my eyes on the heater. "Element was shot. I am replacing it. Should be good in a few minutes." She did not answer, just watched. I could feel her gaze on the back of my neck. It made my hands tighter around the wrench, not because I thought she would insult me again, but because I did not know what she would do. After a moment, she set a glass of water on the small table near my toolbox. "Don't die of thirst down here," she said. Then she turned and went back upstairs. I stared at the glass for a second. It was a small thing, but it did not match the woman in my memory, the one who had called me useless. I finished the job, checked the water, and waited until the pipes warmed up. Hot water rushed through the lines. I felt a small, quiet pride rise in my chest. I wiped my hands, packed my tools, and headed back up. By then, the rain had turned into a storm. When I opened the front door, thick sheets of water were hammering the street, bouncing off the pavement. My truck sat in the driveway, blurred by the downpour. The wind threw cold spray into my face. I stood under the porch, toolbox in hand, and tried to decide. Try to drive in this and risk sliding off the road, or wait it out and stay in the house of the woman who once told me I would never be anything. Before I could choose, the door opened behind me. Valerie stood there, framed in the warm light of her living room, one hand on the knob. Her sweater sleeves pushed up, hair a little messy now. Her expression was still guarded, but softer. "Do not go out in that," she said. "You will either get sick or crash that junkyard truck of yours." She hesitated, then added, "Come back in. Sit in the living room. I am not going to bite." Quote. Her voice was firm, but there was something under it, something that sounded a lot like she did not want to be alone either. I looked at the storm, then at her, and felt something shift inside me. "Okay," I said, "just until it slows down." I stepped back into her house, the door closing behind us, the sound of the storm fading into a dull roar. I did not know it yet, but fixing that water heater was not the real reason she had called me. The living room hit me first. Warm. That was my first thought. Not just the heat. The whole place felt warm. Soft lamplight. Dozens of candles flickering on shelves and the coffee table. Some were in clear glass jars, some in little metal tins, all of them throwing out different scents. Lavender, pine, something sweet like vanilla. Jazz played low from a speaker in the corner, the kind of slow piano that makes you feel like it is already midnight, even when it is not. Family photos lined the mantel. Valerie and Jason as kids, their parents in old clothes from another decade. One shot of a younger Valerie with shorter hair, holding a stack of books and laughing at someone off camera. It was strange seeing her like that. Softer. Lighter. I sat on the edge of the sofa, toolbox at my feet, trying not to drip on anything. My shirt was damp from the run between the truck and her door earlier. My boots felt heavy and out of place on the clean rug. Valerie disappeared for a minute, then came back with a towel and a mug. She set them on the coffee table. "Dry off," she said. "You are making a mess on my floor." Her tone was sharp, but there was no bite in it. "Thanks," I muttered. I took the towel and wiped the water from my hair and face. The mug steamed in front of me. Tea, not coffee. Chamomile, by the smell. I wrapped my hands around it and let the heat soak into my fingers. She sank into the armchair across from me, curling one leg under her. She stared at the rain hitting the window. The glass streaked and shining in the candlelight. For a while, neither of us spoke. The jazz filled the space between us. I watched her over the rim of the mug. She looked different from the woman who had called me useless years ago. There were faint lines around her eyes now, a small tiredness in the way her shoulders slumped, when she thought no one was looking. The words came out before I could stop them. "I did not think you would ever be this nice to me," I said. Her gaze slid from the window to me. One eyebrow lifted. "I did not think you would stay this quiet," she shot back. A small smirk tugged at the corner of her mouth. "You used to mouth off a lot more." I let out a short laugh. "Yeah, well, life happened. I learned when to shut up." She studied me for a second, like she was trying to match this version of me with the kid she remembered. "Maybe you changed," she said. Her voice was softer now. "Or maybe I just never really looked." Silence fell again, but it felt different. Less like a wall, more like a pause. She was the one who broke it this time. "You still remember that night, don't you?" she asked quietly. "When I went off on you in the garage." I stared into my tea. The steam fogged my vision for a second. "Hard thing to forget," I said. "You told me I was dragging Jason down, that I was useless, that I would never be anything." My voice came out flat, but my jaw clenched. Those words had sat in the back of my mind for years like a bad tattoo I could not remove. She winced. Just a small twitch, but I saw it. Her hands folded together tighter in her lap. "I know," she said. "I remember every word." She looked down at her hands, then back up at me. "I thought I was protecting my brother," she went on. "I saw you two skipping things, drinking, acting like nothing mattered. I had this picture in my head of what kind of man he should be, what kind of friends he should have. So I decided you were the problem." She shook her head at herself, a sad smile twisting her mouth. "I judged you without knowing anything about you," she said. "That was not fair. I am sorry, Matt." My chest tightened. I had never expected an apology from her. Not now, not ever. "It's fine," I said quickly out of habit. "It is not," she answered. "But I would like to start making it less not." Quote. She stood up and walked over to a shelf. She picked up a candle in a clear jar and brought it over to me. The wax inside was a deep green. "This one is pine," she said. "I light it when I need to feel grounded. I think it suits you more than it does me." I took it from her. Our fingers brushed for a second. The scent hit me, fresh and clean, like the woods after rain. "How did you know I like pine?" I asked, trying to lighten the mood. She shrugged. "Lucky guess." She did not sit back in the armchair. She sat beside me on the sofa instead, a small space between us. Not a lot, but enough to feel like a choice. I turned the candle in my hands. "For the record," I said, staring at the label she had written in neat letters. "People around here still think the same, that I had potential and threw it away, that I am just the guy who fixes things and never got his life together." "And what do you think?" she asked quietly. I let out a breath. "I think I am trying," I said. "Maybe slower than I should. Maybe in ways nobody notices. But I am still here. I am still showing up." Quote. She watched me with a look I did not recognize from her. Not anger, not judgment, just listening. "You are not useless," she said. "You never were." I was angry and scared, and I took it out on the first easy target in front of me. That happened to be you. Her honesty made it hard to speak. "What about you?" I asked. "You have this house, this job, all these candles. Seems like you are the one who got it right." She laughed once, but there was no joy in it. "Looks can lie," she said. "I had a plan once. Teaching, a man I thought I would marry, a neat little future tied with a bow. He left. The job wore me down. Now it is just me and this house. I make candles to feel like I still create something. Some days it feels like I am just filling time." There it was, the same thing I carried in my own way, loneliness hiding under routine. I did not know what to say, so I said the only true thing I had. "I like what you made here," I said, nodding at the candles, the photos, the soft light. "It feels like someone lives here. A real person. Not just a job or a role." Her eyes softened. "Thank you," she said. A timer beeped in the kitchen, sharp and sudden. "I started dinner," she said, standing up. "You hungry?" I realized I was. My last meal had been a gas station sandwich hours ago. "Yeah," I said. "I could eat." She walked toward the kitchen and glanced back over her shoulder. "Come on then," she said. "If the storm is trapping you here, you might as well get a pasta out of it." I followed her into the small dining area off the kitchen. A pot of pasta sat on the stove, steam rising. Tomato sauce simmered in a pan. A cheap bottle of red wine stood on the counter, already open. "Nothing fancy," she said, pouring the pasta into a bowl. "Smells good to me," I replied. We ate at her small table, candles between us. The food was simple, but warm. The wine was not expensive, but it loosened something in my chest. We started trading stories. She told me about a student who had written her a letter, saying she was the only adult who ever listened. I told her about a small cafe whose website I built, and how proud I felt when they told me more people were finding them because of my work. "That is not small," she said when I tried to brush it off. "That is impact. Never let anyone make you feel like your work does not count because it is not flashy." I looked at her and, for the first time, believed she meant it. The hours slipped by. The storm outside turned from angry to tired. Rain still fell, but softer now. The jazz slowed. The candles burned lower. After we were done eating, we drifted back to the living room. I expected her to point at the sofa and tell me I could crash there until morning. Instead, she stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, looking at me like she was wrestling with something. "This house has 3 bedrooms," she said quietly. "But tonight, I do not want to be alone in any of them." My heart thudded once, hard. "If you still think I am the same cold woman who judged you back then," she added, "you can leave in the morning and I will not call you again. But tonight—" She stepped closer. Her eyes held mine, open and a little scared. "Tonight, do not let me stay up alone." The words hung between us, heavy and gentle at the same time, and I knew nothing between us was simple anymore. When she said, "Tonight, don't let me stay up alone," it felt like the air in the room changed. It was not flirty, not a joke. Her voice was too raw for that. It sounded like she had peeled something open and was waiting to see if I would look away. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Okay," I said. "I won't." For a second, she just watched me, like she was checking if I really meant it. Then her shoulders dropped a little, like she had been holding her breath and finally let it go. She walked past me into the living room. The candles were lower now, the flames softer. The room dipped in gold and shadow. The jazz was still playing, quiet and slow. She sat on the sofa this time and patted the spot next to her. I sat down, leaving a careful gap between us. Not far, not close. My heart was beating harder than it did when I carried heavy ladders. "I did not mean you owe me anything," she said after a moment. Some nights this house feels too loud, even when it is completely quiet." "I get that," I answered. "My place is tiny, but some nights I swear it echoes." She smiled a little, but it faded quickly. We fell into a kind of half-talking, half-silence rhythm. We did not dig into old wounds again. The heavy stuff had already been said. Instead, we moved through small things that felt big because of who we were saying them to. She told me how she got into making candles, how she started with one kit from a craft store because she needed something to do with her hands that was not grading papers. "I liked the control," she said. "You choose the scent, the color, the jar. You pour, you wait, and then something solid comes out of all that heat." I told her about the first time I fixed something and got paid for it. A neighbor's busted sink. How the money felt good. But what felt better was knowing I could solve a problem with what I knew. "People think hands-on work is less than," she said. "They are wrong." Quote, We sipped more wine, but not enough to blur anything. If anything, everything felt too clear. The candles, the way her voice dipped when she was serious, the way her foot brushed my ankle by accident and then did not move away. The storm outside had settled into a steady rain. Not angry anymore, just present. At one point she leaned forward to blow out a candle that was burning too low. As she did, the neck of her sweater slipped a little, showing the fine line of her collarbone. My eyes caught on it before I could stop them. She straightened up, and our eyes met. Caught, I looked away fast, swallowing heat. "Matt," she said, my name soft, not sharp. I forced myself to look back at her. "I don't want you to be scared of me," she said. "Not anymore." "I'm not scared of you," I replied. She tilted her head. "Then what are you scared of?" "You, me, this, Jason, all of it." "I don't know what this is," I said instead. "You're my best friend's sister. You're you. I fix things for a living. I sleep next to a water stain on the ceiling. You live alone in a nice house and pour wax into jars," she cut in. "We both have our mess, Matt." There was no anger in her voice, just truth. "I don't want to be something you regret tomorrow," I said, the words surprising me with how much they hurt to say. She let out a slow breath. "If I regret anything," she said quietly, "it will be that I kept people out for so long I forgot how to let them in." She shifted closer, closing the space between us. The side of her leg pressed against mine. Her hand rested on the sofa cushion, inches from my own. "Look at me," she said. I did. Her green eyes were steady, but there was a shine in them, like she was holding a lot back. "I am not asking you to fix my life," she said, "or promise me anything. I am not asking you to be your best friend's sister's secret project. I just want to feel like I am not invisible. And when you are here, I don't." My chest pulled tight. "I feel the same," I said, "like I exist a little louder when I'm here." Quote. For a moment we just sat there, eyes locked, the room narrowing down to the small space between our faces. I could smell the faint lavender on her skin, feel the warmth of her body through her sweater. "I keep thinking about the age thing," I admitted. "About what people would say. About Jason." "I have been thinking about that for years," she said. "About what people say. It did not stop my fiancé from leaving. It did not stop my brother from moving away. It did not stop me from ending up alone in this house most nights." Her hand moved, slowly, until her fingers brushed the back of mine. "Maybe I am done letting other people decide which risks are allowed," she said. Her fingers curled, tangling with mine. My heart jumped. I squeezed back. The air felt thick and electric, like the moment right before lightning hits. I did not know who leaned in first. It felt like both of us. 1 inch, then another. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth and back up. My breath caught. "Matt," she whispered, like she was giving me one last chance to back away. "I'm here," I said, and then our lips met. The kiss was not rushed. It was careful, testing. Her mouth was soft and warm, tasting faintly of wine and chamomile tea. My hand left the sofa to rest against her jaw, my thumb brushing her cheek. She sighed into the kiss, a small sound that made every doubt in my head go quiet for a second. Her free hand slid up to my shoulder, fingers curling in the fabric of my shirt like she was afraid I would vanish. We did not fall into each other like in a movie. We held there, in that gentle press of mouths, saying everything we were too scared to say out loud. That we were lonely. That we were tired of pretending. That we saw each other, really saw each other, and did not look away. When we finally pulled back, our foreheads rested together. We breathed the same air, close enough that I could feel every small shake of her exhale. "I have not felt this awake in a long time," she said quietly. "Me neither," I answered. She shifted, resting her head against my shoulder, still holding my hand. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her closer. The blanket from earlier was draped over the sofa. I grabbed it and pulled it over both of us. We were not trying to turn the night into something it did not need to be. There was no rush to undress or tumble into the dark. Whatever this was, it was already big enough. "So," I said after a while, my voice low, "what now?" She let out a soft breath that tickled my neck. "Now," she said, "we sit here and let ourselves be here, just for tonight. No plans, no labels. Just two people who do not want to stay up alone." "Sounds simple," I said. "It is not," she replied, "but maybe it can feel that way for a few hours." We fell into a quiet that did not feel empty. She talked sometimes in small pieces. About a student she still worried about a trip she once wanted to take and never did. I told her about a design I had in my head for a small workshop I wished I could build someday. "Why haven't you?" she asked. "Money. Fear. The usual," I said. "Maybe you are not as stuck as you think," she said. "Maybe you just needed one person to stop calling you useless." My throat tightened. I pressed a small kiss to the top of her head. Outside, the rain softened to a light tapping. Inside, the candles burned low, the room growing dimmer. Her breathing slowed against my chest. My own eyes grew heavy. As I started to drift, I felt her fingers squeeze mine one last time. "Thank you for staying," she whispered, half asleep. "I'm not going anywhere," I murmured, and for the first time in years, I fell asleep not worrying about tomorrow, but holding on to what I had right then. In a warm room, with soft light, and the woman who once told me I would never be anything, now holding my hand like I was the only thing keeping her from being alone in the dark. I woke up to light on my face and the sound of something soft clinking in the kitchen. For a second, I did not know where I was. The ceiling above me was smooth and white, not the cracked one in my apartment. The room smelled like pine and wax and something warm. Then, I felt weight on my arm. Valerie. She was curled against me on the sofa, her head on my chest, one hand resting over my shirt like she had fallen asleep holding me in place. The blanket was still pulled over us, warm where our bodies had been pressed together, cool at the edges. For a moment I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. It was steady, calm. I could feel the slow rise and fall of her chest against my ribs. Everything from last night came back in one rush. Her words, her apology, the kiss. The way she had said, "Do not let me stay up alone." My chest tightened, but not in a bad way. More like it was making room for something new. I shifted a little. She stirred, turning her face into my shoulder with a soft sound. I waited, not wanting to wake her. A second later, her eyes opened slowly. "Morning," I said quietly. She blinked up at me, like she was still deciding if this was a dream. Then a small, shy smile tugged at her mouth. "You are still here," she said. "Truck would not start without me," I said. She let out a small laugh and pushed herself up, sitting back against the arm of the sofa. Her hair was a little messy, her sweater twisted at one shoulder. She looked softer than I had ever seen her. Human. "I made coffee," she said. "Come outside." I nodded and sat up, rubbing the sleep from my face. My neck ached from the angle I had slept in, and my arm was kind of numb from her weight, but I would not have traded it for anything. She walked to the sliding glass door that led to the small back porch. It was cracked open. Cool morning air drifted in, carrying the smell of wet earth. The storm had passed. The sky was pale and washed out. Drops of water still clung to the railing and the leaves in the yard. I folded the blanket and left it on the sofa, then followed her out. The backyard was small but neat. A wooden bench sat under a tree. A string of lights hung above it, half of the bulbs dark. The grass was wet and shining. Valerie stood by the railing, holding a mug of coffee in both hands. She had another mug waiting on the rail. I picked it up, feeling the warmth seep into my fingers. "Thank you," I said. We stood side by side, shoulders almost touching, looking out at the yard. The silence was not heavy. It felt like the pause after a deep breath. "I am not great at the morning after thing," I said finally, in case that was not obvious. She smiled without looking at me. "Me either," she said, "but I am trying something new, being honest." I took a sip of coffee. It was strong and a little bitter. It fit. "So," I said, staring at the wet grass, "last night, do you regret it, Quote, She went quiet. For a second I wished I could pull the question back. Then she turned to face me. No, she said, not even a little. The answer landed deep. She looked down at her mug, fingers tightening around it. I am not going to pretend I know what it means yet, she went on. You are younger than me. You are my brother's friend. People might talk if they knew. I am not blind to that. But for one night, I did not feel like I was just a teacher or a sister or a woman who got left behind. I felt like myself, and you were part of that. My throat felt tight. I do not know what this is either, I said, but I know I do not want to pretend it was nothing. I do not want to act like I just came here, turned a wrench, and left. Quote, She nodded slowly. I do not want that either, she said. A bird landed on the fence, shook out its feathers, then flew away. The world outside the yard moved on like nothing had changed. But inside the small circle of the porch, everything felt different. She set her mug down and leaned her elbows on the railing, staring at the string lights hanging over the bench. Half the bulbs were missing. The others were clouded or flickering. These things have been broken for months, she said. I keep meaning to fix them. I followed her gaze. The line sagged in the middle, like it had given up. I could look at them, I said, this afternoon, if you want. Her eyes slid to mine. There was a small spark there. You really would come back? She asked. If you call, I said, and even if you do not. She smiled then, a real smile, one that reached her eyes. I trust you with more than my lights now, she said. We stood there for a bit longer, talking about smaller things. Work. Jason. How the neighborhood had changed since high school. She told me Jason had been calling more lately, thinking about moving back closer to home. He always asks about you, she said. I never knew what to tell him. What will you tell him now? I asked. She thought about it. That you fixed my water heater, she said, and that you are not the same kid he left behind. Is that all? I asked. For now, she said. The rest is ours. There was something about the way she said ours that made my chest warm. I finished my coffee and set the mug down. I should go, I said. Got a yard to mow at 10, and a truck that might need a pep talk to start. She nodded, but I could see the part of her that did not want this morning to end. I felt the same. At the door, I picked up my toolbox. She walked with me to the front hallway. The house smelled like coffee and cooled candle wax. On the small table by the door sat the pine candle she had given me last night. She picked it up and tucked it into my free hand. Take it, she said. So you remember this house is not just a job site. I do not think I will forget, I said. I stepped out onto the porch, then turned back. She stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, her hair catching the pale light. Valerie, I said. Yeah? Last night was not just about the rain, I said. Something softened in her face. No, she agreed. It was not. I wanted to kiss her again right there on the porch, but the quiet of the street and the idea of neighbors watching stopped me. Instead, I gave her a small, crooked smile and headed down the steps. My truck started on the second try. I backed out into the street, the pine candle resting on the seat beside me like a small green promise. As I drove through the neighborhood, the houses looked the same as always. Perfect lawns, tall trees, nice cars and clean driveways. But I did not feel the same. For years I had carried her words in my head like a curse. You are useless. You will never be anything. Now there were new words sitting on top of them. You are not useless. I was wrong. Stay. Do not let me stay up alone. Somewhere between her door and the end of her street, I realized something simple and huge. I did not have to keep living like the boy she had once judged. I could live like the man she had seen last night. The one who showed up. The one who stayed. We did not make big promises. There was no talk of what we were or what we would become. All I had was a candle that smelled like pine, an invitation to come back and fix some crooked lights, and the memory of her hand in mine while the storm beat on the windows. It was not everything, but it was enough to start. That afternoon, when I finished my other jobs, I sat in my apartment for a moment. staring at my phone. Then I stood up, grabbed my toolbox, and picked up the candle. I did not need to wait for her to call. I already knew where I was going.